is 1177 BC. The world does not end with one explosion. It dies city by city, scream by scream, flame by flame. For centuries, the great kingdoms of the Bronze Age ruled the known world like gods. Massive empires stretched across deserts and seas. Kings traded gold, silver, ivory, and weapons across thousands of miles. Gigantic palaces towered above crowded cities. Armies marched beneath banners of power while scribes carved history into stone. Then everything collapsed. Not in one nation, in all of them. This is the story of the Bronze Age collapse. History's first true apocalypse. Imagine standing on the walls of a mighty city at night. The sea is black, the wind carries smoke, and on the horizon, ships appear. Hundreds of them. No flags, no mercy, no warning, only fire. The guards scream as flaming arrows rain from the sky. Bronze swords crash against shields. The gates explode inward. Mothers grab their children and run through streets already burning. Temples collapse. Palaces become furnaces. And before sunrise, one of the greatest cities on earth is gone forever. This nightmare spread across the ancient world. The mighty Hittite Empire vanished. The wealthy Mycenaean kingdoms of Greece fell silent. Cities in Canaan burned to ashes. Trade routes snapped apart like broken chains. Even mighty Egypt, one of the strongest civilizations in history, nearly died. For hundreds of years before the collapse, the Bronze Age world was deeply connected. Kingdoms depended on each other for survival. Tin came from distant lands. Copper crossed dangerous seas. Food traveled through massive trade networks. Kings sent letters like modern world leaders. Armies relied on imported materials to make bronze weapons. Everything was connected, and that became their weakness. Because when disaster came, it spread everywhere. Historians still argue about what truly caused the collapse. Some say it was climate change. Years of terrible drought turned fertile lands into dust. Crops failed, starvation spread. Entire populations began migrating in desperation. Hungry refugees became raiders. Raiders became armies. Others blame earthquakes. Ancient texts describe cities shaking violently. Walls cracked apart. Temples collapsed instantly. Some researchers believe a chain of massive earthquakes destroyed entire regions one after another. Then came rebellion. Poor citizens rose against their rulers. Mercenaries betrayed kingdoms. Trade routes became battlefields. Pirates attacked cargo ships carrying food and metal. And finally came the mysterious invaders. History calls the Sea Peoples. No one truly knows who they were. Ancient Egyptian carvings show warriors arriving from the sea with horned helmets, round shields, and deadly weapons. They came with families, wagons, and entire populations behind them. Not just soldiers. They weren't raiding. They were invading the world itself. One Egyptian inscription describes them Like a storm of destruction, no land could stand before their arms. Kingdom after kingdom fell before them. Cities that had existed for centuries disappeared in fire. Some were destroyed so completely that archaeologists today still find blackened ruins filled with weapons, skeletons. Then the invaders turned toward Egypt. At the time, Egypt was ruled by Pharaoh Ramesses III. He knew the apocalypse was coming. Refugees flooded into Egyptian territory with terrifying stories of annihilated kingdoms. Smoke rose from distant coasts. Entire civilizations had already vanished. Egypt stood alone. Ramses prepared for war. He fortified the Nile Delta with archers and warships. Every available soldier was called into battle, because if Egypt fell, the ancient world would truly end. Then the Sea Peoples arrived. Thousands of warriors surged toward the Egyptian defenses by land and sea. Ships crashed through the waves as arrows darkened the sky. The Nile turned red with blood, but this time the invaders failed. Egyptian archers unleashed devastating volleys from the riverbanks, while Egyptian ships rammed enemy vessels in brutal close combat. Soldiers dragged drowning enemies from the water and slaughtered them on shore. Ramesses claimed total victory. Egypt survived, but survival came at a terrible cost. The empire was exhausted, trade was shattered, wealth disappeared, enemies closed in from every direction. Though Egypt endured, it never fully regained its former power. The age of great Bronze Age empires was over, and then silence. 4 generations, entire regions entered what historians call a dark age. Writing disappeared in some places. Trade collapsed, population dropped. Technology was lost. Once great cities became abandoned ruins, swallowed by sand and weeds. People who once lived in magnificent palaces now struggled simply to survive. Human civilization had fallen backward. Imagine if the modern world suddenly collapsed today. No internet, no governments, no supply chains, no electricity, no global trade. Cities starving within weeks. That's how catastrophic the Bronze Age collapse was. It was not just the fall of kingdoms. It was the destruction of an entire international system. And the strangest part, no one saw it coming. The kings believed their empires were eternal. Their walls were massive, their armies unstoppable, their wealth unimaginable. Yet within only a few decades, almost all of it vanished, burned, buried, forgotten. Forgotten. But from the ashes of the collapse, new civilizations slowly emerged. The Phoenicians expanded across the seas. The Israelites rose in Canaan. Greek culture eventually returned stronger than before. Iron replaced bronze, creating deadlier weapons and changing warfare forever. humanity survived, but the world would never be the same again, even today. The Bronze Age collapse feels terrifyingly modern because it reveals a dangerous truth about civilization. The more connected the world becomes, the more fragile it can be. One broken system can trigger another. Trade collapses, food disappears, governments weaken, panic spreads, and suddenly empires fall. That is why the Bronze Age collapse still haunts historians over 3,000 years later, because beneath the ancient ruins and burned cities lies a warning to every civilization that comes after it. No empire is permanent, no system is unbreakable, and sometimes the end of the world does not arrive in a single moment. Sometimes it arrives slowly, uh, ship by ship by ship, fire by fire, city by city, until history itself